lovely that it is sunny. Woohoo! Today we have the incredibly exciting, innovative Scarlett Smith talking all about her new debut tour, Any Objections, which combines harping, pop harp covers, new music, and she is a comedian. So harp comedy. Go check out her websites, check out the tour dates. If you like being happy, if you like laughing, and if you like harp, that is the gig for you. For now, though, I hope you enjoy this podcast as much as I enjoyed meeting and chatting to Scarlett Smith. I hope she's going to be my friend from now on because she's absolutely fantastic. Happy Poppy Harping, everybody. Hello, Scarlett. Welcome to the PoppyHarp Inspire Podcast.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
It's so exciting to talk to you because you are, I like to think, where music could be going. So you've got comedy, you've got pop, you've got changing classical stuff, you're interacting with audiences. So I can't wait to talk to you about everything you're doing because you really are changing the face of harping. So you're on tour right now, so thank you for taking the time to come and talk to all the poppy harpers. Talk to the poppy harpers. Can you tell us a bit more about your tour and the dates you've got coming up? This is coming out in April, so when can people come to see you and what can they expect to come see?
The show is called Any Objections and it is a harp and comedy show. I took it to the Brighton and Edinburgh Fringe Festivals last year. And so now I'm doing my debut UK tour, which is so exciting and something that I've kind of dreamed about for years. And yeah, this will be in early April. So I'll have done quite a lot of my kind of around the UK date, but I will be in the Front Room Theatre in Weston-super-Mare, which is kind of Somerset Way, on the 11th of April. And then I'm doing 2 dates in London on the 12th and 13th of April at the Drayton Arms Theatre, which is so exciting. I've never gigged in London before other than a few really lovely weddings that I've played at. So
because you do a lot of weddings, don't you? So what came first? Did the pop covers come first, or did the comedy come first, or did it all just... Tell us about your journey.
Theatre. I was such a theatre kid. Harp, I've been playing harp since I was 7. And it was always something that I really enjoyed, but it always kind of felt like a hobby. I was never I'm going to make music my career, but I always really enjoyed performing. I was always quite a creative kid. And then when I was a teenager, I was getting to the point where my parents were like, oh, if you want to go out and do things with your friends, you should probably be trying to make a little bit of money. And my wonderful, supportive, entrepreneurial dad was like, you should go busking because you're musical, little cute girl with a harp. You'll rake in the millions. And so he would take me to Bournemouth, which was my local big town, most weekends through my kind of mid 14, 15, 16-year-old years. And I played a mix of kind of some of the classical folky things that I'd been learning in my lessons and some covers of pop songs that I'd kind of taught myself. And it was through busking that I then started to slowly get people stumble upon me and be like, oh, will you come and play at our wedding? Do you want to come and play at our nice little cafe? And so this kind of little part-time job, and I realized that I could make more money busking than any of my other friends who were working part-time jobs. And so slowly these gigs started rolling in, and I was terrified at the time. Because little 16-year-old Scarlett playing at a beautiful wedding was very daunting, but I kind of settled into it and then kept my wedding work just slowly ticking away. Once I moved to Bristol to study at university, I studied a degree in contemporary circus and physical theatre.
Amazing.
Which probably is represented in the weird genre mishmashing work that I create today. But yeah, still played weddings alongside this. Slowly was doing more and more kind of pop, rock, film scores, video game music, because this is what people seem to kind of want and seem to work well at weddings, because people love to hear music that they know and recognize but wouldn't expect to hear on the harp. Graduated around the time of the pandemic. I was like, I really don't enjoy circus as much as I did when I was younger. I still kind of like theatre. I did some work as an actor musician. I did a few touring kids shows, which was really fun. Time of the pandemic, I was like, I think I want to focus more on music and really pushed this. I like created a new website. I created my like first harp Instagram. And so I've just been growing that side for, oh, we're now 2026. So like 5, 6 years now through it after pushing it three-ish years quite strongly. It had got to the point where I could scale down my wedding work slightly, take a few less bookings with clients who I felt like were a slightly better fit for me and a little bit more appreciative of the time and energy that actually goes into playing a wedding. Because it's so easy to think for people that it's just an hour or two on the day, but actually, if you think
Whole day plus all the prep, plus all the
whole day plus
learning,
all the
everything.
prep.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, kind of started scaling back my wedding work slightly, having slightly more like conscientious, mindful clients who felt like a slightly better fit for me. And then started creating this harp and comedy show that I am now taking on tour. So that kind of takes us up to where we are today. Yeah.
What is your comedy show all about? What can people
But
expect
yes,
to come and see?
so it is kind of loosely inspired by my work in the wedding industry, but then it kind of slowly delves into a showcase for how I think the harp can be so much more than just a classical instrument, because we all know it as this beautiful classical instrument. As you said, I am kind of pushing it into modern day, and I think there are quite a few other harpists who are kind of moving into this like electro-acoustic world. And so it's a showcase for what other places and ideas I think could be explored within the world of like modern harp. And so it includes various of my, I think, excellent, potentially quite unhinged business ideas. There is a fateful boat trip. There's a bit of a game show. We go to outer space at one point. It kind of starts off more storytelling and stand-up and ends up feeling a little bit like a kind of surreal sketch show.
What it sounds a little bit like is I, with my kids, at nighttime, we do made up stories, but it sounds like made up stories for adults.
Yes, it has so much like inner child energy. It's like it is a comedy show, and I really try and push it as a comedy show. Otherwise, I've realized that if you just bill it as a harp show, the kind of audience that you tend to get who think they are going to a lovely harp recital are not always the ideal target market for a very silly comedy show.
I feel like you've had an experience there. I feel like you've learned from something.
Oh, well, it's been a journey for sure. But yeah, it's a kind of mix of like heartfelt and hilarious, I like to say. It's got some original music, it's got some like of my like modern pop covers of music that people will know and recognize. I don't know if I've mentioned it yet, but yeah, my harp is electro-acoustic, so I run it through a multi-effects pedal and a loop pedal. And so this allows me to kind of like warp the sound of the harp and record stuff and loop it live on stage that I can then use to kind of underscore the stories.
So what as a geeky question,
Oh yeah.
partly geeky question. So you've got a Pilgrim Allbred, do you?
Yeah, so I've got a Pilgrim Oldborough Wave.
And then what loop do you go into? Because I've got a really old RC30 from like it's about 15 years old. I need to get a new one. What have you got? What do you use? What
So
do
I
you
think
recommend?
the multi-effects pedal I use is a Line 6 HX effects pedal. So this is what I use for reverb, for EQ, for delay, for various different like choruses and like distortion. So all of the effects go on. The signal goes from the harp into that, and then it goes into my loop pedal, which is an RC300, which I think is just the one up from yours. I don't think they actually make it anymore. I got mine secondhand off Facebook Marketplace maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it just seems so durable, and you can like back it up on your computer, and it's got files that you can make in it. So my show has, I think, like 13 different like slots that it goes through. And so some of this is recorded and played live, but there is also some music that I've used the harp with, but also like created in Ableton with like music production. And I've recorded that into the loop pedal. And as I just click through the different like presets in the show, as we go through the different scenes and stories, it means that I can make all of the music happen on stage, even when I want music to be happening when I'm not actually at the harp, if I'm off flaunting around the stage telling stories or doing an astronaut training program or whatever happens.
I'm a warrior. I'm a massive warrior, so I do everything live. So I can't save anything because what if it hasn't saved right? What if like my whole little brain just spirals into a million, and then I go, well, if I do it live, and what if I'm not focusing and it goes wrong?
Yeah, that's so interesting because I am a worrier too. And I like have dealt with my fair share of performance and social anxiety over the years. And so like weirdly for me, like if I'm playing someone down the aisle to a live looping piece, I will have re-recorded the loops just because if I'm like nervous and anxious and sweaty in that moment, I'm like, I don't want to take any chance that the loop doesn't quite record properly. And so knowing that it will like, even because obviously when you're only playing the harp and you're on, I say only playing the harp, but when you're playing something just live, if there's like a tiny little mistake that happens, as I'm sure there is when almost all of us play, because perfection is like unachievable, and part of the joy of live music is hearing the kind of like intricacies and like imperfections and things that make it feel human. Because otherwise you'd just get a robot to do it, wouldn't it? Wouldn't you? But yeah, if you make a tiny little mistake, no one else in the room is going to notice when you're performing at, especially if you're performing at a wedding where often people are chatting in the background and it will just kind of go by unnoticed. But if you've recorded it into a loop that is then going again and again and again,
You did it wrong.
I will hit, even if other people,
you did it wrong.
Yeah,
On repeat.
And I've had that happen a couple of times before where I've been like, oh, that loop wasn't quite as tight as I wanted it to be. And I've talked to people afterwards and they're like, oh, I'd never have noticed because people don't know what it's meant to sound like. But I just, yeah, I always want to do everything I can to ensure that things run as smoothly as possible, which for me means occasionally like re-recording a couple of bits. But so it's so interesting to hear that you are the opposite and you'd rather do everything live.
Oh my gosh, panic. But I think that's because I did record something once, I think, and it didn't like I hadn't recorded it properly and it hadn't saved. But I've had, oh my goodness, the first time I ever used an iPad, the bride was walking down, and thank God I've got a good memory, but she was walking down the aisle, and I forgot to turn on screen just always on, you know, so. And you normally do it with your right hand thumb, don't you? So I was like going, oh my God. It's fine, but oh my goodness, I've learned to make sure that you don't turn,
Yeah.
don't have auto lock on.
And it's so easy to be your own worst critic in those situations and be like, oh no, like just beat yourself up about it. But it happens to all of us, I believe, as harpers, especially if you're doing this at least somewhat professionally and doing it regular. If you're playing enough gigs, like eventually, like you can't control everything in the universe. Eventually, something will not quite work properly. And none of my family are particularly musical or were growing up. But when my dad retired, he decided to learn saxophone and is now like a super passionate jazz saxophonist. And one of the things that he says is being a professional or being a good musician is not never making mistakes. It is knowing how to quickly recover from them and carry on without anyone really noticing. So yeah, whether that's quickly going, okay, I'll just make this work and do one hand while I fix out my iPad, or quickly clicking a few pedals and being like, no, they don't know what it's meant to sound like. It'll be fine.
Sometimes you make mistakes you wouldn't have even thought. So I turned up in this, I thought, beautiful green jumpsuit to a wedding, and the bride's mother came out and said, you can't wear that. You're not wearing that, right? And I was like, what? She was like, green is unlucky at weddings. I was like, whoa, what is it? What? So now I take two. I take two, something I'm wearing in a spare, just in case somebody finds whatever color I'm wearing unlucky.
Oh my God.
And I had one as well when I was, okay, I'm a jumpsuit wearer just like you because they're so
Yes.
comfortable and they look nice, they're comfortable. Bam. The only problem
Especially if you're doing anything with like pedals. I feel like
yeah.
I'm often moving my left leg out to the side so much. I feel like I'd flash someone if I was wearing a dress all the
Look at
time.
all these stunning girls in these beautiful long
Beautiful
dresses and they
girls.
look so elegant and I just fall on my face.
I'm
Or they
always
get
like,
caught with the pedals. Yeah.
how are you moving the harp around in your like beautiful like high stilettos and your floaty dress? I'm sure a lot of people, if there are any professional pedal harpists in here, will judge me for this. I used to wear Doc Martens,
Nice. Nice. What color? What color?
like sparkly black.
Lovely. I
Go
have
with
sparkly red.
everything, like very functional, can run around, can drag my harp up a big flight of stairs in them. And like for me, I want to look so like black sparkly feels fancy. I've
Yeah.
clearly made an effort, but still functional. But I have recently switched over to sparkly black Converse. So similar vibe, but I got to the point where there were just a few pieces that I was playing that had just a few too many pedal changes that in quite wide soled
Boots, yeah.
shoes. I was like, I want more control of my black Converses for gigs now. And yeah, little sparkly feet. I've had a couple of weddings over the years where I'd turn up in my Doc Martens and like both the brides or like if they're for the weddings where I think there was only one bride, it was like the bride and all of her like wedding party, all of her like bridesmaids, they were all in docs.
Love
And I
it.
got a little picture of us with all our docs together and I was like, oh yes, I have met the right, I'm clearly marketing myself well, being kind of like loud and clear enough about the kind of harpist I am that it's allowing my people to find me.
Love that. Yeah, because you're never gonna suit everybody. I think some people get
No.
really upset when they're like, oh, this person didn't like this. You're never gonna make everybody
Yeah.
happy. So you just got to find your people. I love that.
Like we were saying earlier, I'm conscious that that also comes a little bit from a place of privilege of getting to the point in my career where I have enough work coming in that I can say no to things. And like I went through my fair share of years early on in my career where I did feel like I have to say no to it, had to say yes to anything that came my way. Learning what your personal kind of like red flags are like early on and learning the kind of clients who you want to work with and the kind of work that you enjoy doing so that you're able to say, actually, no, this opportunity just isn't quite I'm not the right fit for this, is so freeing and I think has made such a difference to my overall happiness in my career. Like for you, being like, actually, no, weddings aren't quite the right thing for me at the moment, but I'm really enjoying teaching. And I've done a little bit of teaching over the years, but honestly, I'm awful. I'm such a bad teacher. I have so much respect for people who are good teachers because I think it is such a skill. And I do think like, maybe when I'm at a different point in my life, if I have more of a family or feel a little bit more settled, maybe I would want to have like a little harp group because I do think there's like so much value in being able to pass on this wonderful skill that we have. And I'm so grateful to Wendy, who was my harp teacher growing up. This beautiful instrument has opened so many doors for me. At least for the time being, I am not suited to be a good teacher.
You're so inspiring though, because when you learn harp, you're very pushed down a very classical route, aren't you? For most of the time. And you're going to be an orchestral harpist and you need to do this and this and this, and you need to teach and you need to do solo concerts in these certain venues.
Yeah.
You're not really doing any of that, which is amazing. So you're doing the weddings and you're doing the comedy and you've not been shoehorned. You've almost gone, I'm not going to go into that road at all. I'm going to go next to that road. It's really, really inspiring.
Interestingly, I think part of the reason that I've been able to do that is because I didn't study at a conservatoire and I didn't study music as my degree. And so I kind of didn't have quite the same pressure, or the impression I get is that often like wedding work can be looked down upon.
Oh, totally, which is stupid.
Which is so silly.
Stupid. So
Because
stupid.
it is like you can meet such lovely people. Like it is often weekends, which is a shame, but it's generally very sociable hours, I find. Like I love that I'm there during the day and I can get home often in time for dinner. And it pays their sustainable rate. I still think we have a lot of work to do as harpists to kind of like talk more openly about pricing and pricing like fairly and appropriately for our services. Like kind of chronically as an injury in as an industry, we have a kind of history of undercharging, especially when you consider how much the cost of living has gone up in the last few years. I think as a community, like it's so important that we have open conversations about how we think about pricing and how we think about charging for our time. And I feel, yeah, so lucky and grateful that I have been able to find a good amount of wedding clients, like a sustainable amount of wedding clients in the last 2 to 3 years who pay me fairly and sustainably for my work. And so, yeah, this is kind of tying back to how mad it is that I think people will put often a lot of shame, especially I think if you've studied music classically, then if you're like, oh, you're going into weddings now, it doesn't get the love it deserves.
It's a lot harder than people think as well.
Yeah.
You're one of the staff, but you're also a guest. You're not really,
Yeah.
really weird. I think I'm getting some deja vu from my lovely friend Meredith, who's written a book on professional etiquette in just all musicians.
Oh, wow, that sounds
It's
so
really
interesting.
cool. Yeah,
Has
Meredith
it been
McCrindle.
released yet?
I want to say yes. I want to say yes. Yeah, her name's Meredith McCrindle. She's in Scotland. She's
Yeah, yeah,
super
yeah.
incredible at
Gold harp, gold
Gold
pilgrim harp, I
Heart.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gold, another pilgrim wave brought up. And I'm like, yeah, that is you're a guest, but you're not a guest, and you're staff, but you're not staff. And it's kind
Mm,
of in being part of the day, but not interrupting the day. It's
yeah,
really tricky. And people keep offering you wine as well. Do you get that? I get
yeah.
a lot of booze off.
Constantly champagne.
That's lovely, but I can't. I can't.
I can't. I'm far too much
I
of a
need
lightweight.
ice.
Being professional, but also kind of, I guess, being approachable, creating like an atmosphere where everyone feels like happy and comfortable. Because you are in charge of like creating a great deal of that atmosphere with your music.
Quite an interactive person.
Yeah.
Your comedy must be quite interactive.
Yeah, I've had a fair. The show's quite playful. I can imagine similar to some of your concerts. Energy of the show can vary slightly depending on who's in the room. And I've also learned 7 p.m. show on like a Wednesday is very different to doing an 8 p.m. show on a Saturday. And especially like a show in like I did one of my tour dates was in Poole, which is kind of near Bournemouth, South Coasty area, and the audience were like so lovely. They were very warm, they were animated, they laughed at all the points they were meant to laugh. They were like giving good energy, but they were very respectful. They were very like, oh yes, we are here to see a show. Whereas comparing that to the show that I did, a couple of the shows that I'd done in Bristol on Friday and Saturday nights, we've had some rowdy crowds. I like a bit of a heckle. I like an opportunity to have a little bit of a chat, a little bit of banter. I think a heckle can be an opportunity for some silly playfulness and to make the show, give the people who have come to the show like a unique experience, and you're being there with them in the room. You're like creating the experience with them. But after this drunk guy had heckled like 5 or 6 times, I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I actually really need to just get on with the show now. Okay, so we're going to carry on. And then he interrupted once more after that, at which point another wonderful woman across the other side of the audience turned and was like, shut up! And so it's been such a fun new thing to learn, because obviously that is such a different atmosphere to playing a solo recital. I don't know, playing any kind of show as a harpist or as a classical musician is such a different audience. And I guess maybe weddings are somewhere in the middle.
You said you wouldn't be a good teacher, but it sounds like comedy shows sound quite like
Good training.
just a school lesson. You're trying to do a show, somebody's chipping in over there, somebody's telling them to shut up.
Yeah, maybe. I think
Oh.
that is so much of like what makes a good teacher is just like getting the experience to come up with your like your toolkit and your tricks and all of your like lesson plans or like process. Like when you book a wedding, I'm sure you have like a kind of process that you go through. And with students, you have a process that you go through. And the more you, I guess, focus on that thing and like put your time and your energy and your care into this work that you're doing, the better you'll become.
See, that's a very
Yeah.
grown-up way of thinking about it. I'd just gone straight to water pistols as well. While you're, I might just fire a water pistol at them. Enough now.
Oh, maybe that should be.
That's what you do with dogs,
There's a
isn't
lack
it?
of water pistols in my show at the moment.
There you go. You need some kind of,
So I'll take that.
like one you get with a spray, and when a dog is making too much noise, you just go, enough now.
Yep. Shush.
They get them spritz.
On with the show.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming in and chatting to us. You've got loads of tour dates coming up in April, so I'll make sure to put them on the link below this, link them up below this. Thank you so much for taking the time. You must be absolutely shattered, but really appreciate you coming and talking to us, and all the best of very luck. All the best of luck? All the best of very luck? All the very best of luck. That's the one.
Oh, thank you.
One.
If anyone wants to see the full list of tour dates, you can find them on my website, bristolharpist.co.uk, or you can find me on socials at bristolharpist. And yeah, maybe I'll see a few. Always a pleasure to have some other harpists in the crowd.
Well, oh, good luck.
Thanks, Fran.